Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this. And totally redeem yourself!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And boy, oh boy, just when you think everything is going to zero, nobody's buying comic books, we get a little news announcement like this: the Thunderbolts movie is confirmed and the comic book market absolutely loses their mind. So in this video, we're going to talk about the announcement of the Thunderbolts film. We're going to talk about the books that relate to that movie, maybe some of the characters that could be possibly showing up on the team, and possibly, my spec on where this might all be going. But before I get into the video, if you guys could drop me a like or comment or subscribe for enjoying the content, helps support the channel, doing those things, I would appreciate it. But let us get into this video here today. Of course, the very first thing that we got to talk about is the announcement itself. Yesterday, it came out on Deadline. They announced that Marvel Thunderbolts movie taps Jake Shearer as the director. The article also goes on to talk about the writer of Black Widow is also going to be writing the script here. And this one is pretty crazy because, the Thunderbolts movie has been something that has been rumored about and speculated on for, a long time now, but it hasn't ever really been officially announced. And usually it takes things like D23, or usually it's like a Disney Investor Day or some kind of San Diego Comic-Con where, Papa Feige would actually come out and announce that it's official, the Thunderbolts movie is happening, and that would be an official announcement. And then you would announce directors, writers, actors, things like that. But we kind of did it the opposite way here, where we got this director and writer announcement, and sort of ipso facto, that kind of confirms that the movie is coming. And the market went absolutely bananas for Incredible Hulk number 449, which of course you guys know at this point is the first appearance of the Thunderbolts team. Now, this is one of those books that has been speculated on in the market for a long time now. I mean, it seemed like for a while there, after every single Disney show we got or every single, movie we got, there was always a little spike up for this book. But this one right here is, I think, the straw that broke the camel's back for this one, because we saw a resurgence into the market for this one, a book that has really, really fallen off, actually. But, I'm just going to scroll through here and show you guys just how many sold Incredible Hulk 449s there were yesterday. There's actually 2 pages of this. I just want to show you. I mean, look at this. This is insane, like how many sales there are. I mean, this is more than some of the other, massive pops in the market that we got for She-Hulk or Ms. Marvel. I went in and I actually counted how many sales there were for this particular book, and we got around like 73 on eBay just alone. That's, not even counting like what are the other, marketplaces that this book has been moving. But that is quite a lot. I mean, when we got the She-Hulk trailer, for instance, and we were looking at like Savage She-Hulk number 1, we saw like a flurry of sales, but maybe it was like 30. So this is already like 2.5x of that. We also did get a couple record highs for this. This 9.6 sale right here at $300 is actually the record high for this grade. I think the previous record high was around 230 or so. So already, the FOMO is brewing. The 9.6s are moving off the charts. We also did see some 9.8 sales. Now, we didn't get the record high, but we did see it turn the corner, so to speak. So you can see right here on June 9th, we got a 678, a 700, a 585, and another 700, and then a 660 right here. And this is in comparison to like May 31st, a week ago, where most of the prices were 500, 480, 470, 460. So you can see this book has definitely had this little bit of a spike up right now, and we're, starting to, see it rise back into the market. And this is one of those things I think is interesting because it kind of piggybacks off of the conversation we had yesterday in the video I put out, where we were talking about the recession and the state of the economy. And, my overall sentiment to that video, or to the, what I was talking about, was basically this idea of like, if you bought a key book and you have the ability to hold on to it, and you can see like in the distance, market conditions that will swing in your book's favor eventually, then you should definitely try to hold on to that book, because eventually the prices will recover and go back up. Now, that's not to say that I think, this Incredible Hulk 449 is going to be reaching the $1,000 price point anytime soon. No, not necessarily. But let's say you're somebody who bought this book, in the end of 2021 in October, and you bought it around 757 and then you saw your book plummet all the way down to 490, well, now you're feeling a little bit better today because you're thinking to yourself, okay, like now we got a couple $700 sales again, and this book is starting to turn the corner, and who knows where it might go from here. That's not to say that, it won't again tank later on, like a couple months from now when we're past this rumor. But, if you can hold the book, maybe when we one day get the movie, things might eventually recover. The last one we want to talk about just in general in terms of the Thunderbolts team is Thunderbolts #1, another book that moved a lot in the market yesterday off the heels of this announcement. Now, Thunderbolts 1, of course, is the first titled series featuring the Thunderbolts team, a book that, right now I think is kind of selling on eBay around that $40 price point. We did get a 9.8 sale at the $250 price point or so, which I do believe is the new record high for this thing. So Thunderbolts #1 and Incredible Hulk number 449, the two books that have been moving the most off the heels of this announcement. But of course, we're just talking about the Thunderbolts team right now. Now, there are some books that relate to, the members of the team, like who are the characters that might be showing up in this Thunderbolts movie. Of course, we don't know right now. This is purely speculation, but, we're going to look at some of the landscape of some of the characters that potentially could show up. And then also we're going to talk about some of the characters in terms of like who was actually on the original team in the comic books. But I think the first person that we got to really talk about is, of course, Baron Zemo, who effectively makes his first appearance in Captain America number 168. He's a character in this comic book known as Phoenix, but if you actually read the comic book, you would know that he reveals himself to be the son of Helmut Zemo. Although a lot of people like to talk about Captain America number 275, where later after he drops the name of Phoenix, he comes back here and takes up, the purple hood. This is the first time you see him in costume here. So a lot of people think about this book as being the first appearance of Baron Zemo. In my opinion, if you're someone out there who wants to make a play on either one of these books, I mean, in truth, I'm not really sure either of these books are ever really going to take off too much in the market. I think there's some things going against them due to the fact that, Baron Zemo's not on the cover. It's kind of a running back by committee situation where the values have been split amongst the two books. But to me, safer book is probably going to be this one right here. It's, a Bronze Age book, 20 center versus, this one right here, which is a 60 center. So just thinking about it from an age perspective and a census perspective, I think Captain America 168 is probably the book that you would want to own. But again, I actually do think that if you're someone who wants to make a play on the Baron Zemo character, there actually is better books out there, which I will talk about at the end of this video. And ultimately, that'll be where, where I think this is all going. The next book that we got to talk about is Inhumans number 5. This is the first appearance of Yelena Belova, of course, played by Florence Pugh. She made her debut in the Black Widow film. We saw her in Hawkeye. She certainly has a relationship with Contessa. And, it definitely feels like, Contessa is the person that's putting together this Thunderbolts team. So she's already got Baron Zemo there. She's obviously going to be recruiting Yelena Belova. And Inhumans number 5 is where she makes her first appearance. The other character we have to talk about that we can assume is going to be on the team is, of course, Abomination. Now, we know that Abomination is going to be showing up in the She-Hulk show. We've already seen him in the trailers. And I actually do think, it's interesting, thinking about the announcement, the time of it, where we are currently in the MCU, it does maybe feel like maybe by the end of the She-Hulk show, we might have a Contessa cameo come in and maybe she recruits Abomination. Now, I do personally like this book. I mean, I like the fact that it's a Silver Age book. I think Abomination is a cool character. He definitely feels like he's going to be a focal point of the She-Hulk show. And now that we have the Thunderbolts movie coming up sometime in the future, I mean, it definitely feels like this character might have some legs in the MCU. So I like this book for that reason. I've also talked about this book because this is the first Silver Age appearance of the character known as Bira. Bira is basically like the Loki to Submariner, cousin of Submariner who really doesn't like him. He's the guy right there you see on the cover. And as we also introduce Submariner into the MCU, I mean, it's very, very likely that we could see characters like Bira. So this book right here has like a double factor that I really do like for it, as it keeping its relevance to pop culture and the MCU. All right, the next book we got to talk about is, of course, Strange Tales number 159. This is the first appearance of Contessa Valentina Allegro de Fontaine, who, of course, is Julia Marie-Dreyfus's character in the MCU. We first saw her in the Falcon and Winter Soldier show. Then we got her in Black Widow. I'm sure she's going to make more appearances. It definitely feels like she's the one putting together this Thunderbolts roster. Now, I like this book being a Silver Age book, but, if I'm really being honest with ourselves, I mean, how much do we really feel Contessa is going to be a, huge pop culture character. I kind of think of Contessa, as her in her best situation is going to be kind of a Nick Fury out there in the MCU. And what we can see, in terms of history with the Nick Fury books is that, yes, they have value. Yes, they have some demand, but, a lot of people don't chase the Nick Fury books simply due to the fact that Nick Fury is rarely the focal point of the MCU. So I think this book is one of those, maybe if you happen to be out there hunting and you find a good deal on this one, might be worth, picking it up. But outside of that, this is definitely not a book that I would chase, especially since, the prices skyrocketed so much when we got her official reveal in Falcon and Winter Soldier. All right, another speculated character for the Thunderbolts team is, of course, Taskmaster, who makes his first appearance in Avengers number 196. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. They ruined Taskmaster in Black Widow, totally changing the character. We didn't get Tony Masters. I want to riot. And yeah, you have totally valid reasons to think that. I definitely still think that this is a great book to own. I mean, outside of the MCU, Taskmaster is such a cool character. It's a great George Perez Avengers book. I mean, I actually really do think that when we get the Thunderbolts team, if in fact they use Taskmaster, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually did change it to the Tony Masters version. I mean, there's nothing to say that they won't do that. We already got like the right quote unquote Mandarin. So the MCU is not afraid to sort of change the characters for the fans if they feel like the fans didn't really like the persona that they did. I also think it's fine because the Taskmaster that they used in the Black Widow film worked within context to the story they were trying to tell in that film. And, we're past the blip now. I mean, technically that was 8 years ago in continuity to the MCU. And they even mentioned that it was like the Taskmaster program or whatever the case may be. So there's nothing to suggest that, now that S.H.I.E.L.D. seized all those assets or whoever ended up getting them at the end of the film, they could totally have recruited Tony Masters. They can decide that he's going to be a new character, and they can do the Taskmasters that we all know and love. So I still am pretty bullish on this book overall. I think it's a great key to own, regardless of MCU. And, I think that it's very, very likely that we're going to see Taskmaster again on the Thunderbolts roster. All right, I'll quickly kind of speed through the rest of the books that, have been talked about, based off of this rumor. Of course, there's Captain America number 354. This is the first appearance of U.S. Agent played by Wyatt Russell in the MCU. I really like this book. I mean, I know that there's that Captain America 323, which is the first appearance of John Walker, but I think that this is going to be the book that you want to own moving forward from here. It definitely feels like we're going to get U.S. Agent, or at least the version of U.S. Agent. I definitely would try to find this raw, but if you can find it for like, $25 or $30 even, I think it's going to be a good buy. And, if you are a fan of this character, definitely not a bad book to own. Similarly, here we have Iron Man number 219, first appearance of Ghost. This is actually one of the books of all the characters we've talked about so far that has moved the most in the market. Now, that's not to say that there are a ton of sales, but this one actually had 4 sales off of the heels of the announcement. Ghost, of course, made her appearance in Ant-Man and the Wasp. I do think that she's a okay character. I could definitely see her on the Thunderbolts roster. I think that this is a cool book to get. If you can find it for, $20 or less, I definitely think it's a good pickup. And who really knows, if she shows up on the team, could be a good book to own. All right, last couple characters that are rumored to the roster. Of course, there's Captain America number 6, which is the first appearance of the Winter Soldier. This one right here is the variant cover that features Winter Soldier on it, which in my opinion is definitely the one that you would want to own if you're going to spec on this book. I actually think that this book right now is pretty undervalued in the market. I mean, you can definitely find pretty high grade copies, selling around that $70 price point, which doesn't seem that bad to me if you're a fan of the Winter Soldier character. Additionally, there's Hulk number 1, first appearance of the Red Hulk. I mean, unfortunately, with the passing of William Hurt, it doesn't necessarily feel like Red Hulk is going to be on the table for the MCU anymore, but I do still think this is kind of a cool book. Now, those are just the rumors of the characters that are currently in the MCU that may likely show up on the Thunderbolts team. I think that there's good reason to think that those characters will. I mean, when we think about how the MCU handled the Illuminati, it's not like they got comic accurate representations of the Illuminati team to show up in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. They just used whatever characters were available to them. So I think similarly, what's going to happen with the Thunderbolts roster is they're just going to use whatever characters are available to them. But, since we're talking about the comic here and we're talking about the Thunderbolts, I still want to show you guys, the other roster members that might be interesting to keep your eye on if you're a fan of the team or you want any of these books. So let's kind of move on to what are some of the characters that were on the original Thunderbolts roster. The first interesting book I wanted to point out is this one, which features the first appearance of Eric Johnston, otherwise known as Power Man. He later becomes Goliath, and then he later becomes Atlas on the Thunderbolts team. But this one right here, Avengers number 21. If you're a fan of the Power Man character or the Eric Johnston character, I definitely think this is the book to own. Great early Silver Age Avengers book. So pretty cool in my opinion. There's also Strange Tales number 123. This is the first appearance of Beetle. I've talked about this book so many times. You guys know I love this book. Abner Jenkins right here is Beetle. He's one of the original kind of villains in Marvel. He's had interactions with Daredevil and Spider-Man, etc. He actually becomes Mach 1 on the Thunderbolts team. I still think this is a cool book, even outside of all the speculation. Who really knows? Maybe we'll get Beetle at some point in the future in the MCU. But he does die in the comic books, and he is replaced by Janice Lincoln. She becomes the female Beetle. Now, her first technical appearance is this one right here, Captain America 607, but she's only on one panel in this. So it's kind of a cameo appearance, although it does take place in the middle of the book. So, depending on how you like to think about your first appearances and all that stuff, this might be the book for you. I personally think the cooler book to own is this one right here, 608, where she is fully involved in the story. And also, I mean, look at this Zemo cover. Talk about awesome Zemo covers to own. I think that this one's really cool. So, female Beetle, I think that that's a cool character. She's the daughter of Lonnie Lincoln, who, if you guys know, is obviously Tombstone. Other characters that I think are interesting. Now, this one right here is the first appearance of the Screaming Mimi, who later becomes Songbird. I think that, this book is okay. I'd rather have the Incredible Hulk book that actually does feature the first appearance of the Thunderbolts. Then there's this one right here, Captain America, number 192. This is the first appearance of Carla Sofin. Carla Sofin later becomes Moonstone, who later becomes Meteorite, who later becomes Captain Marvel and Ms. Marvel and has a long history in Marvel comic books, but she actually makes her first appearance here. This is kind of one of those Carol Danvers situations where do you like the first appearance of Carol Danvers or do you like the first appearance of Moonstone right here, which is Incredible Hulk 228, or will you eventually like the first appearance of her as Meteorite in Thunderbolts, or in Incredible Hulk number 449. So, kind of a split situation here, but just wanted to point that out to you guys. Lastly, on the team, there's the first appearance of the Fixer. He makes his appearance here in Strange Tales number 141. Maybe we're going to get a comic accurate version of the team, and maybe they're going to put Fixer on it. Now, of course, Thunderbolts, very, very cool team, very interesting story. I talked about earlier in the video how I thought that, if you're someone who is a fan of Zemo, there's another book that I think is the book to own. And that one, of course, is the book that I think where this is all headed towards. And that's Avengers number 6, first appearance of the original Zemo and first appearance of the team, the Masters of Evil. In my opinion, if you're a fan of Zemo, even though this is his father, I think that this is probably the book you just want to own for the Zemo character. It's an early Avengers, early Silver Age, first appearance of Zemo. He's got the purple outfit right there. It says Zemo on the cover. You got the bonus that it's the Masters of Evil. So I really do think that even though it's his son that we're seeing in the MCU, this is probably the book that you want to own if you want to represent your love for Zemo. And, to me, when I think about the Thunderbolts team and where it's all going, if I was going to use my armchair Feige speculation, my writer, filmmaker, creative brain, I definitely think that what I would do with this is have the Thunderbolts roster. They come out, they replace the Avengers, they're kind of the anti-heroes, and then eventually things get out of control for them. Zemo gets a little more radicalized, Abomination gets a little more maniacal, Yelena Belova gets kicked off the team, US Agent gets kicked off the team, they start to recruit some other villainous characters, the team gets out of control, and then our Avengers have to come in and save the day, and eventually they go against, the Masters of Evil. That's where I personally would take it all. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. That was me just kind of going through the rumor, talking about the characters that could be showing up. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about the Thunderbolts team? Are you guys excited for this? Have you guys been chasing any of these books or characters that relate to the Thunderbolts roster? Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I will see you in the next video.